Understanding the dark side of leadership. The dark side of any individual, when allowed to go unchecked, can create a rigid and dysfunctional personality that stifles creativity and taints or ruins relationships. When such characteristics are given rein in a leader, a self-righteous and bombastic person can result, who alienates the very people they're meant to inspire. The compulsive leader. Compulsive leaders feel like they have to do everything themselves. They try to manage every aspect of their business, often refusing to delegate and cannot resist having their say in everything. As they lack trust in others, they cannot let anyone else take responsibility, therefore they restrict personal growth in their team. Compulsive leaders have many other traits. They are perfectionists who must follow highly rigid and systemized routine, and they're concerned with their status. Thus, they strive to impress their superiors with their diligence and efficiency and continue to look for reassurance and approval. This can lead to them becoming workaholics, and their team is viewed as failing if they don't keep pace. Spontaneity is not encouraged as it bucks the routine. Despite this appearance of total control, such leaders can be fit to explode on the inside, and this can be the result of a childhood environment where unrealistic expectations were placed on them. Their attempts to keep control are linked to the attempts to suppress anger and resentment, which makes them susceptible to outbursts of temper if they perceive that they are losing their grip. The narcissistic leader. Narcissistic leaders are focused on themselves. Life and the world revolve around them, and they must be at the center of all that's happening. While they exaggerate their own merits, they will try to ignore the merits of others, or seek to devalue them because other people's accomplishments are seen as a threat to their own standing. The worst type of narcissistic leader cannot even tolerate a hint of criticism and disagreement, and avoid their self-delusions and fantasies being undermined by surrounding themselves with sycophants. Where possible, they will attempt to use the merits of others for their own advancement and think nothing of stepping on people to get ahead. Their own feeling of self-importance means that they're unable to empathize with those on their team because they can't feel any connection. Their only focus is on receiving plaudits that further bolster their sense of greatness. Such an attitude is often the result of a deep-seated inferiority complex, and thus no matter how much they're achieving, they'll never feel that it's enough. Some narcissist leaders take on a sidekick, but this person is expected to toe the line at all times and serves only to reflect glory onto them and loudly approve of all that they do. Clever sidekicks can subtly manipulate the leader into focusing on the operational outcome of their plans rather than just their own self-aggrandizement. Ultimately, this type of leader can be very successful if their vision is strong enough that they get the organization to identify with them and think like they do. Such productive narcissists have more perspective and can step back and even laugh at their own irrational needs. The paranoid leader. Paranoid leaders are exactly as they sound, paranoid that other people are better than they are, and thus they view even the mildest criticism as devastating. They're liable to overreact if they sense they are being attacked, especially in front of other people. This can manifest itself in open hostility. This attitude is the result of an inferiority complex that perceives even the most constructive criticism in the wrong way. The paranoid leader will be guarded in their dealings with other people because they don't want to reveal too much about themselves in case they display their weaknesses and are attacked or undermined. They may be scared that their position is undeserved, therefore can be deeply suspicious of colleagues who may steal their limelight or perhaps challenge for their position. This is not always a wholly negative trait, however. A healthy dose of paranoia can be the key to success in business because it helps keep leaders on their toes, always aware of opportunities not to be missed. It's the opposite end of the spectrum to being complacent and can make for a very successful venture. The codependent leader. Codependent leaders do not enjoy taking the lead and instead seek to copy what others have done or are doing. They avoid confrontation and would rather cover up problems than face them head on. Planning ahead is not their forte. They tend to instead react to whatever comes their way rather than acting to alter outcomes or achieve goals. Codependent leaders, therefore, are not leaders at all. They're reactionary and have the habit of keeping important information to themselves because they're not prepared to act upon it. This can clearly lead to poor outcomes because all the pertinent facts are not known to those below the leader who may be charged with making the decisions. This type of leader avoids confrontation and is thus liable to accept a greater workload for themselves rather than respond negatively to that request. They're also prone to accepting the blame for situations that they haven't caused. The passive-aggressive leader. Passive-aggressive leaders feel like they need to control everything, and when they can't, they cause problems for those who are in control. However, they're sneaky in their ploys and it's very difficult to catch out. Their main characteristics are they can be stubborn, purposely forgetful, intentionally inefficient, complaining, behind closed doors of course, and they parry demands put on them through procrastination. Typically, if they feel they're not firmly in the driver's seat, they'll jump out and puncture the tires when no one's looking, then feign and whore and pretend to search around for the tire iron. This type of leader has two speeds, full speed ahead and stopped. When situations do not go their way, they will offer their full support for whatever's been decided and then gossip and backstab, willfully cause delays, and generally create upset. When confronted, they claim to have been misinterpreted. Passive-aggressive leaders are often chronically late for appointments, using any excuse to dominate and regain some control of the situation. Dealing with passive-aggressive leaders is thus a draining and frustrating affair that saps energy. They're not adverse to short outbursts of sadness or anger to regain some control, but are ultimately fearful of success since it leads to higher expectations.